Terror in Resonance is the perfect example of a politically charged anime. It's also an example of how a lack of context can cause non-Japanese viewers to feel lost. With any medium, we subconsciously impose our own context to fill in the blanks of whatever we're watching. And this is how anime can speak to such a wide audience so intimately. When it comes to politics, though, the opposite is usually true. Without the context that the target audience of Japanese viewers is assumed to have, political anime usually gets misinterpreted or recontextualized to be focusing on or around the politics they're familiar with rather than Japan's. Now, watching anime and applying it to what you're familiar with isn't a bad thing. But there are times when the political messaging of a show references specific policies and actors, and the authorial intent is crystal clear if the viewer is aware of the context. 2014 gave us several shows that focused on similar political moments. As a result, shows like Terror in Resonance give us a snapshot in time of the political climate of Japan in 2014. And director Shinichiro Watanabe chose to explore such a political climate. The opening scene of Terror in Resonance is of an unnamed nuclear facility in Aomori, where the protagonists steal a nuclear weapon being developed in secret by the government. This plant does have a name though. It's Rokkasho, and it has been protested since its planning stages. The facility can produce large amounts of plutonium that Japan's reactors can't use but can be used for weapons. Watanabe's opening act makes it clear that the series is about Japan's need to grapple with its nuclear legacy. Years after the Fukushima nuclear incident, Japan was still struggling to understand how to move forward. Nuclear energy was being called into question. As Japanese citizens took to the streets to protest the proposed restarting of reactors, and local politicians even began blocking the reopenings, Japan entered an energy crisis. The incident even toppled the Democratic Party of Japan due to a perceived inability to adequately respond to crises which reached its apex at Fukushima. Independent commissions concluded that the DPJ was at fault for the situation. They specifically blamed Prime Minister Khan's desire to micromanage and his inability to work with the bureaucracy. The Liberal Democratic Party seized the opportunity to declare their political rivals as weak and won a landslide victory to regain power in the 2012 elections. In the summer of 2014, Stanford research associate Kenji Kushida found that the DPJ couldn't handle the crises precisely because of the LDP. See, the DPJ had only ruled for 3 years, 2009 to 2012. Prior to this, the LDP had ruled Japan since 1955. Yeah, a single political party ruled Japan from Eisenhower to Obama. The systems the DPJ had to work with for Fukushima were put there by the LDP. Kushida's findings conclude that Khan's decision to micromanage was actually necessary. But the LDP was already back in power, and they wasted no time in pushing for their agenda. It turns out the LDP had no intention of better handling nuclear protests. They were more interested in remilitarization.
俺がガキの頃住んでた町はさ、年寄りばっかだったんだよね。
確か広島だったな。被爆2世のお前がこの件を受けたのはそこか。核をおもちゃにする犯人を許すわけにはいかないと。
The initial target of the story's protagonists is the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building. A clear message that their target is the leadership of Japan. Eventually, it's revealed that all targets are a group of politicians that are intent on the remilitarization of Japan. One such method they tried was the kidnapping and experimentation on orphans, including our two protagonists. And the two were determined to show Japan the group's successful attempt.
We need to prove that when this country's constitutional interpretation changed, they started secretly producing atomic weapons.
Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution is what makes the country pacifist. And in 2014, Prime Minister Abe succeeded in amending it. Although the decision was unpopular, he had enough control over the Diet to force it through anyway. Terror in Resonance is Watanabe's poignant response to the reinterpretation of a pacifist Japan. He interweaves the issues of nuclear reprocessing, remilitarization, and a political party seemingly uncontrolled by its populace and determined to reimagine Japan.
あの戦争が終わり、もう70年近くも経った。しかし、この国は今でも敗戦国のままだ。未だこの国の精神は負け犬のまま、いかなる尊厳も持っていない。この国は真に独立せねばならん。
How Japan remembers and teaches the events of the war is a massive subject and deserves its own video in due time. What is necessary to understand in relation to terror and resonance is the emphasis on revisionists achieving high-ranking government offices for decades now. They have created the systems of government that undermined the DPJ and will undermine any other party that manages another upset victory over their dynasty. As we approach the 10-year anniversary of Fukushima, it is important to recognize how the disaster has had far-reaching consequences that continue to bring Japanese protesters into the streets even now. Now that Abe has stepped down as prime minister, the party still rules and will for years to come. It may appear like Japan has only one path forward, that despite any opposition, the fate of militarization and nuclear energy is already sealed. That protesting is just a form of release before the inevitable. But is it? Can these events culminate in another path?
核兵器が存在する限り、いつ誰が被爆者になるか分かりません。ひとたび発生した被害は国境を越え無差別に広がります。
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, like, comment, and subscribe, the usual YouTube stuff. There's so much context behind anime, and we have plenty more to share, and we'd love to have you along for the journey.